What does it really mean? A plague?
There could be 1 or 2 victims, but that could be the end of it.
Possibly it just exists in people's minds.
What we should do is face the facts, sift out the unnecessary anxieties, and then take whatever measures seem necessary.
And then it will go away.
And if it goes away, which it probably will, then fine.
But if it doesn't...
Then we will learn to understand it.
In order to defeat it.
Eventually.
To some, what follows will seem reasonable, and to others improbable. All I'm trying to do is to say that this happened, because it did happen, and it affected the whole of society. Then people have to make their own minds up. My name is Dr. Bernard Rea, and circumstances put me right in the middle of the events of that spring. Everything you'll see is either something I was involved in directly, or are first-hand accounts of those who were. I'll be relying on recordings I made at the time, as well as eyewitness testimony passed on to me. I shall only refer to any personal feelings or opinions as and when I think they might be relevant in helping people to understand what happened.
Doctor.
Yes. Of course. Enough caveats. Time for the story itself. It's important to go over the events of the first few days in some detail. I was leaving my flat on the morning of April the 16th when I found a dead rat in the middle of the landing. I paid it no attention and carried on downstairs. When I got to the foyer, I informed the caretaker, Mr. Michel, who stated quite categorically that there were no rats in his building, and someone must have dumped it there as some kind of a joke. That evening, when I got home, I was looking for the keys to my flat when a second rat dragged itself towards me onto the landing. It stopped, gave out a shriek before collapsing dead with blood pouring from its mouth. The blood? The next morning, the morning of the 17th...
Doctor, when you saw the blood, what did it make you think about?
It made me think of my wife.
Your wife?
She'd been ill for nearly a year at this point and was leaving for a clinic the next morning. When I got upstairs, she smiled at me, said she was feeling fine. I kissed her and told her to save her strength for the journey. She was so weak, but she kept smiling at me right up until I left the room.
You were telling us about the morning of the 17th of April.
Yes. The next morning, I asked Mr. Michel if he'd seen any more rats. He said he'd been keeping an eye out for the culprits, but they hadn't dared. He seemed disappointed.
And your wife, Doctor?
My wife was packed and ready to leave for the station. At the station, she hugged me and said, "Everything will be all right." Then she boarded the train, and the train left. The only other thing I can remember in that moment was a station guard walking past with a box full of dead rats. Later that afternoon, I had a visit at my home surgery from a reporter with a national newspaper, Raymond Romber.
April the 15th. I visited Dr. Rea today for the article I'm writing on the health of the town's immigrant population.
Their health isn't good. But before we went any further, I needed to know that he could be trusted to write the truth.
I mean, of course I can be trusted.
And that his editor would allow him to write a total condemnation of their situation.
Probably not, but a total condemnation wouldn't be justified, would it?
There's enough injustice in the world. I said I could only contribute to any report written without reservations. And so I declined to help him with his.
I felt like I was being accused of something, so I just apologised for disturbing him and went to leave.
I could see I'd offended him. So I suggested there might be a story in all these dead rats people keep finding.
Now that does interest me.
It's the evening of the 17th. Mr. Michel tells me he's now finding rats in 2s and 3s, and it's the same in his other buildings. When we were talking, I noticed he kept rubbing his throat, so I asked him how he was feeling. He said he hadn't been feeling himself since the rats came, but he's sure he'll feel better once they're gone. I bumped into Mr. Theroux on the way up to the flat. He's become such a fixture around town, it's hard to believe he only moved here a few weeks ago. I think he's still living in one of the big hotels. Theroux has an unusual way of looking at the world.
I was coming down the stairs after visiting friends at around 5 this evening when I came across Dr. Rieu, he lives in the same building, on the landing, watching a rat just dying there right at his feet. Well, I said, "Evening, doctor. These rats are a strange thing." Still, it's always interesting to see something you've never seen before. I found it interesting. Yeah. Definitely interesting.
It's April the 18th. Mr. Michel looked even worse today. There were at least half a dozen dead rats on the stairs, and our neighbours' bins are overflowing with them. I'd say people are becoming concerned. The whole town is teeming with rats. We see people standing and staring at them in the gutters. The newspapers have picked up the story.
April 18th. Are the authorities going to take action or not? What emergency measures are in place to protect the public from this disgusting infestation? April 19th. Last night's council meeting took the decision that 2 refuse trucks will be allocated to collect dead rats every morning at dawn for transport to the municipal incinerator.
April the 22nd. Situations continue to get worse. The number of dead rats is increasing. You see them coming up from basements and cellars in long swaying lines. At night you can hear their tiny squeaks as they die. It's important to note that all of this has happened in just a few days. It's like the town's ridding itself of some kind of infection. No wonder people look bewildered.
Figures from local radio this week. April the 25th, 6,231 rats collected and burned. April the 28th, approximately 8,000. People are calling for radical measures now, accusing the authorities of inaction. Some families who have seaside homes are already talking about escaping to them.
April 29th, 2 p.m. I've just found Mr. Michel in the street outside the flat, struggling for breath. He said he'd felt unwell, so he'd gone out to get some air. But then he started experiencing sharp pains in his neck, armpits and groin. I've told him to get to bed. I'll go by and see him as soon as I can. I've just had 2 phone calls. One from my wife at the clinic. She's settling in fine. And then another from Joseph Grand.
I called Dr. Rieu and asked him to come quickly, as something had happened to Miss Cottard. She's my neighbour on the landing. By the time the doctor arrived, she was okay. But honestly, I thought she was gone. I got her down just in time, I think. I was just going out and I heard a noise. At first I thought it was a joke. I mean, "Come in, I'm hanged," written in red chalk on the door of her flat. But the noise was dreadful. So I went in.
The drop wasn't high enough to cause her any lasting damage, though there were some signs of asphyxiation. I've given her a sedative and she'll be fine, physically at least, in a couple of days. told Miss Cottard I'd have to inform the police.
Informing the police really wasn't necessary. I was fine. Absolutely fine.
Ms. Cottard. She's an odd person. Some sort of salesperson. With a private income too, I think. I tried to make her understand that they might say the doctor was responsible if she were to take it into her head to try again.
No, absolutely not. It's just a moment of weakness. I just wanted to be left alone.
I said, let's leave things as they are for now, and I'll come back and check up on her in a couple of days. I'm going to have to make a report. I'll ask them not to follow up right away.
I volunteered to stay with her. Not that I really know her. We only ever speak on the stairs. But we must look after one another.
When a few people die, they say it's the end of the world. I tell you, we need more than that. An earthquake. A real earthquake. Just kill everyone.
Everyone has their own personal sorrows.
Twenty-ninth evening. I found Mr. Michel half out of bed. He was convulsively vomiting a reddish bile. His temperature was up to 38.5 degrees, and his lymph nodes were very pronounced. There were also black lesions developing on his upper flanks, and he complained of severe abdominal pains, which he described as an intense burning sensation. I called Dr. Richard to see if he'd seen anything out of the ordinary. He said that he'd had 2 patients, both with very enlarged lymph nodes.
April 29th. The phenomenon has abruptly stopped. The authorities announced today insignificant number of dead rats collected. Town breathes sigh of relief.
30th of April. We've had blue skies and a warm breeze today. The whole town seemed livelier than usual. Free from the sense of doom brought on by the rats, I suppose. I had a call from my wife at the clinic. She's settling in fine. And best of all, Mr. Michel is showing signs of improvement. He's still weak, but he's sitting up in bed. And there's even the smell of flowers on the air.
I remember that.
The smell of flowers.
In April, we had no idea.
By lunchtime, Michel's temperature was up to 40. Sudden onset of delirium, return of vomiting, lymph glands painful to the touch. He died in the ambulance. Cause of death? Suffocation. Last words? The rats.
I remember that too. In April, they had no idea. It had just been hints up until then. But then...
Surprise.
Feelings of surprise at first.
And then panic.
It never occurred to people that they lived somewhere where rats died in broad daylight and caretakers perished from unidentified diseases. And still,
If it had stopped,
I'm sure we would have all gone back to business as usual.
And now there are people getting it who aren't caretakers and who don't live in the poor parts of town.
It's May the 1st, an overheard conversation. You knew him, didn't you? Tall bloke, black moustache. Well, he's dead. Oh, when did that happen? Oh, after that business with the rats. Well, what was wrong with him then? I don't know. He just had a temperature. It's May the 2nd. Observations made in the hotel dining room, a father talking to his young boy. Now, we don't talk about rats at the table, do we, Philip? The hotel manager. Well, it's inconceivable that rats should be discovered in the lift of a first-class hotel. Makes us look like everybody else. Apparently, one of the chambermaids has this infection that everybody's talking about. The hotel night porter. When rats leave a sinking ship. It's May the 5th. A dozen cases that I've heard of, most of which have proved fatal.
Still nothing in the press. No information whatsoever.
Rats die in the street and people die behind closed doors. Newspapers only care about things you can take pictures of.
I've just had another call with Dr. Richard. He says there's nothing more he can do. Any health measures would need to be approved, and he doesn't feel he's qualified to intervene. 6 p.m. Michelle's neighbour is delirious and vomiting, with enlarged lymph nodes. I called the regional medical supply centre. There are no available supplies of serum. 9 p.m. I had a phone call with Dr. Castell, head of public health. He said, look, I know no one wants to use the word, and on paper it's impossible. It's been eradicated from this part of the world for years. But you know as well as I do what this is. Someone has to use the word. So, I did. It's impossible. But plague.
it's very difficult.
It's very difficult when it happens to you.
I mean, there have always been plagues and wars in the world.
And when there's a war, people always say it won't happen. Or if it does, it won't last. That would be stupid.
And they're right. War is stupid.
But that doesn't stop them from happening.
Nobody has been more short-sighted.
Here more than anywhere else.
People think everything is still possible. They haven't stopped going to work. They haven't stopped making travel plans.
They keep on having opinions.
But plague cancels the future. Plague shuts down travel. Plague makes opinions redundant.
They think they're free. But no one is free when there's plague.
May the 7th, 11 deaths in 48 hours.
I could imagine him in a plague. Grand. He strikes me as a man who still has the courage of his convictions. And he always tries to use exactly the right words. Surely plague has no place in a town where a man who works in local government still cares about words. I mean, caring about words wouldn't make any sense in the middle of a plague. So, a plague can't have any place in the middle of us. That's wishful thinking. I was called to a meeting of the town's medical staff. We were told that while there's no serum currently available, it could be manufactured to order. In the fullness of time. Someone used the word plague, and we were told, let's not instigate panic. All we're dealing with is a fever with certain complications. It's not helpful to jump to conclusions. They said contagion hadn't been proven yet, so we don't want to paint too black a picture. I said, it's not a case of painting pictures. It's a case of taking concrete precautions.
May the 9th. 16 fatalities.
The radio and newspapers both carried reports claiming it was only cholera. They announced that while yes, there had been a few cases of an unidentified fever, none of them were really specific enough to amount to anything disturbing. They were sure that we will all pull together and cooperate. Stay optimistic.
I heard it was cholera. On the radio. An epidemic.
Meanwhile, they've announced the new measures: additional rodent control, voluntary declaration of any new infections, and additional spending on 2 new medical isolation facilities with 48 beds.
These measures don't go far enough.
Rush hour was as busy as ever. There were queues outside cinemas. Cotard seems to be running around in circles, as if she's trying to escape something.
I'm not a bad person. Really.
She was in a newsagent's, and somebody mentioned a story about someone being murdered on a beach somewhere. And the newsagent said...
That woman's a snake.
The newsagent said, if they just put all the scum in prison, then respectable people could sleep easy. And Cotard suddenly became very agitated and bolted out the door without another word. As if she'd been accused of something. I think she's got something on her conscience.
May the 10th. 24 dead.
I asked the doctor, if someone was sick, then they couldn't be arrested. No matter what they'd done. Could they?
May the 12th. 32. So from 16 to 32 in just 4 days.
Honestly, a few deaths and people talk like it's the end of the world. Well, it takes more than that.
The following additional measures are enforced as of today. Obligatory declaration of status, isolation of the sick, infected property to be vacated and sealed, relatives to be quarantined, all burials to be supervised by the authorities.
These measures are still insufficient. I've been told supplies of serum will be flown in, but not when. They told me there'll be enough for our current cases, but not for any spread of the epidemic. Again, they told me there are no emergency supplies available.
38 deaths today. 38.
May the 14th. Finally. They've done it. They got scared. The official communique reads, declare a state of plague. Close the town. May the 15th. There are long queues at the shops and petrol's been rationed. I think people are struggling to come to terms with what's happening. There's annoyance and frustration. But those aren't emotions that help you deal with a plague.
Of course, people are just blaming the authorities. Dare certainly one to imagine some future relaxation of the proposed measures, blah, blah, blah. And the authorities' response? Publish some statistics.
May the 17th. Most recent weekly totals, 302 fatal cases.
The numbers make it seem like an incident, not a state of affairs. So no one believes it's actually happening. Not to them.
321.
My greengrocer, he was hoarding. And when they came to take him to hospital, he was dead already. But under the bed, jam. Plague doesn't pay, eh?
345.
And this other man in the town centre, when he realised he'd got symptoms, he just threw himself on the nearest woman, shouting, "I've got it! I've got it!" I tell you, the world's gone mad.
482. I asked Rieu about his wife today. In a way, I suppose it's lucky she wasn't here when they closed the town. My wife's name is Jeanne. We married very young. We were so poor, and we both worked so hard, that in the end we forgot to love one another. In the end she left. I ought to have been able to find the words to keep her, but I couldn't. I've been trying to write her a letter, but first sentences are so hard.
Ria has really let me down. I asked him one little favour, and he just doesn't get it. Before all this happened, I met this girl, and I mean, we're practically married, and I managed to get a message out to her to tell her that I was okay, and you know, I just woke up this morning and I realised this whole thing is just not part of my job description. And so I went down to the town hall and I pulled some strings and I got speaking to the people in charge, and I explained to them my whole situation, that I found myself trapped here by accident, and it's only fair that I should be allowed to get home. And of course I had agreed to be quarantined after I got out. And they said they fully understand, but under the current circumstances, it's just... I mean, I'm a total stranger here. This is ridiculous. All I want is to just live with the woman I love. Is that too much to ask? And I know we had only just met, but it was going really well. And so I just thought if I could ask Ria to give me a certificate or something, that just to say that I haven't got the disease, and I just really think that could swing things for me, and maybe I'd be able to get home.
He wasn't thinking straight. Firstly, I didn't know if he was free of infection. And even if he was, in between leaving this office with a certificate and leaving town, he might not be. I told him that even if I did write him some kind of certificate, it would be useless. There are thousands of people in exactly his situation. It's ridiculous, I know. But we have to get through this together.
I'm not from here. It's a question of humanity. Doesn't he have any idea of what being torn apart like this feels like for two people who were meant to be together? I went to him because he had a major role in getting the town locked down in the first place, and I thought just maybe he'd want to undo a little bit of the harm that he'd done. But he doesn't care. He didn't even consider the people who were being kept apart.
I couldn't. There are some things a doctor can't do. There are rules and regulations, and there's plague. And my job is to do what has to be done.
He doesn't understand. He talks in the abstract. I will get out of this town.
I'm on call every day in a hospital that's taking in over 500 plague victims a week. I also manage 2 more emergency hospitals, and not to mention the continued home visits. Is it abstract to have to watch people strip? Abstract when a mother says, "Oh, doctor, I do hope it's not this funny fever people are talking about." Abstract when she sees what's between her daughter's legs and starts howling and can't stop. When people struggle and promise and beg, when they'll say anything at all. When you have to supervise them being dragged to an ambulance by armed police. When you see the piles of disinfected clothes. And the screaming becomes normal. When you don't even know what it is you're battling. So you just say, it's just the way the world is. When you can't get used to watching people die. When they won't die. When you hear a woman shout never. Just when all you know is defeat. Is it abstract? When he left my office, he went to see someone else. Turu, I think. I watched him out of the window and noticed how he hurried. And then I began again. Again.
It's June the 14th. The working class districts are now noticeably quiet. Shut doors everywhere. People no longer coming out to watch for ambulances. Gunfire at the gates. Peppermints are disappearing from shops because there was a rumour that they reduced your chances of infection. The hotel manager saying, "This plague is ruining the tourist trade." A female guest saying, "Well, the good thing about people being quarantined is at least you can tell yourself it's them who are carrying it and not you."
I go to the hospital every evening after work and work next to the doctor at the desk in the corner. Statistics for the health teams. And then I go home and work on my letter to Jeanne. It's no wonder I'm tired. And this first sentence, sometimes it can take me a whole evening on one word. And or but. It's tricky. It's gunfire by the gate. People trying to get out past the guards. It's insane.
All I get from the official channels are words. Unfortunately, no. No exceptions.
You can't count on officials. They're trained not to understand.
If I can't get out of town by legal means...
I have friends who run an organisation specialising in this sort of case.
Cotard told me it can be done. It costs 10,000.
The only moment of relief comes at 4 a.m. In between the deaths of the night that is finishing and the agonies of the day that hasn't yet started, it feels as though the plague stops and catches breath for a moment. The shops are still shuttered. The newsagents are still all asleep. Soon they'll be spreading their headlines again, though. Will the plague be here in the autumn? The experts say no. They publish daily totals now instead of weekly, scoring a point off death by making the numbers smaller. I spoke to Rieu about the lack of medical staff. I said, what about volunteers? If he'd allow it, I had a plan of organising voluntary health teams. He said any volunteers would have a 1 in 3 chance of surviving. Calculations like that are meaningless. July the 7th, began organisation of voluntary health teams. First team assembled in 24 hours.
People say that volunteers are risking their lives. They're heroes. But for me, it's just a case of 2 + 2 = 4. I mean, they either do equal 4 or they don't. We either have an obligation to battle or we don't. Nobody gives school teachers medals, do they? Nobody gives school teachers medals for saying 2 + 2 = 4. Now, some people say that nothing is any use and we should just kneel down. Disinfection squads, victim support, ambulance drivers, they're all volunteers.
So I explained to my contacts. I said this young man has a lady friend, you see, outside, and I had it all set for tomorrow night. But unfortunately, the 2 guards who will be looking at getting him out won't be on duty until Friday.
We have to wait. Alright, 2 more days. Just 2. I'm not leaving because I'm a coward. I just can't bear the thought of never...
Well, good news. They think they can get him out this week.
This week.
I hear Rombert is getting out soon.
It's getting close. It'll be this week.
It's a pity. He would have been useful in one of the health teams. And why won't Cotard join our health teams?
I said to him, it's not my job. Anyway, it won't do any good. This plague is too strong.
Police have put out more roadblocks and started shutting off whole areas of the town. Cotard's friends can't get me out.
That's nothing. There's some problem. Things don't always go smoothly in our line of work.
We have to start all over again. We have to go back to square one.
This plague. It's all about starting again.
Rombert came to my office in great distress. He said, the only thing that matters to him now is living or dying for the thing he loves. I said, he's right, but there's still nothing I can do to help him.
It's easier for Rieu. He has no one to lose.
He didn't know that the doctor has a wife in a clinic hundreds of miles away. She's dying of TB.
Doctor, look, I'd like to volunteer to work for one of your health teams until I can find a way of getting out. Will you have me, Doctor?
What does it really mean? A plague?
It's moved into the better parts of town, right in the centre.
They tried quarantining off those districts, essential workers only, but it hasn't worked.
Then the looting started.
You know how it is. Nobody plans to behave like that, but you see an opportunity.
It made us see things we never wanted to see.
First, it was just simple changes. No church, no family. Burial transport routed to avoid the busy parts of town. And then no coffins, no shrouds, just quicklime. Everything after dark.
And now, no records, no names, just pits.
Everyone says, isn't it time that this was all over? Not bitterly or angrily like they did in the beginning. Hopelessly.
It isn't so much a question of giving up as of giving way, accepting.
Cotard seems the only person in town who isn't exhausted.
At least everyone's at the same creek. Look at them.
Plague suits her.
Nothing like a crisis bringing everyone together, is there? Now they know how I feel.
I asked the doctor how things were going with the treatment, his wife's, and apparently they're not going well at all. I said, my wife, Jeanne, when she reads about us in the papers, does she think of me? Does she look for my name? And the doctor made no reply. If I could only find the right words.
15th of September. I'm working in the hospital every single hour. It was shame. That's why I decided to help. The shame of wanting happiness just for myself. But now, I always thought that I was a stranger in this town and that I had nothing to do with it. But now that I've seen what I've seen, I know that I belong here, whether I like it or not. I told the doctor I'm not leaving.
Most of the time. Most of the time, I'm fine. Sometimes. Because I'm no longer really a doctor. Not anymore. All I can do is diagnose and condemn and file. And I can tell you, working on 4 hours sleep for weeks on end can really make you lose your bedside manner. People look at me with undisguised hatred. think I have no heart. I have enough heart to watch people die for 23 hours a day. I have enough heart to start again on the stroke of the 24th. I don't have enough heart to work miracles. I'm fighting. I'm fighting. I don't know why anymore. September. I don't know the date anymore. The new serum is finally ready. To all intents and purposes, this serum's our last hope. If it doesn't work, either the epidemic will go on for months, or it'll burn itself out. Either way, it'll be completely beyond our control. I'm sorry I need to describe this. Mr. Othon, a local judge, brought his son to us as soon as he saw symptoms. The little boy was already exhausted, and he put up no struggle when we examined him. Othon just said, "That's it, isn't it?" I advised the parents they should pack to go into quarantine, and then I made the mistake of asking Othon if there was anything I could do for him. He said yes. Save my boy. The case was clearly terminal, infection rampant. So we decided to try the new serum, 8 p.m. on the first evening. Single injection, maximum dose.
We stayed by the child's bedside until 4 a.m. the next morning, watching the disease as it advanced, retreated, and advanced once more. At 7, Grant arrived.
The boy's face was contorted, teeth clenched, motionless except for his head turning left, right, back and forth.
He lay curled up, trembling and moaning as the fever swept over him. Then it eased off, leaving him gasping on the bed.
I arrived when it was light and watched helplessly with the others. Ria stood gripping the iron bar at the end of the bed, never taking his eyes off the child.
It wasn't as if we hadn't seen a child die before. We just hadn't watched it like this.
There was no morning remission.
He was holding on for a longer period than usual.
So he will have suffered longer.
He arched his back, tensing his arms and legs.
Stop this, just stop it, please.
Then he suddenly became still, opened his eyes for the first time, and stared right at me. Then, a single continuous cry. I can't do this anymore.
Then, silence. Time of death, 11:30.
I think seeing that changed us all.
You either believe everything or you deny everything.
I think seeing that changed us all. This is December the 5th. The newspapers are still talking about calm and courage, but there are demonstrations everywhere over food, prices, all the black market speculation. And in the camps, the quarantine camps, which have been set up to handle the overflow.
Everybody knows. Everybody knows what life is like in those camps, and everyone has just agreed to forget about them. This is the problem with waiting. The more you wait, the better you get at waiting, and then you end up abolishing any idea you might once have had of the future.
It's December the 14th. There was more fighting at the gates. The serum has had some successes, but there are also new forms of the infection. It's Christmas Day. Well, this Christmas is the Christmas from hell. Empty shops, empty windows, empty boxes, no children, no celebrations, except for the private, disgusting celebrations of the rich. December the 26th. Mr. Grand didn't turn up for work.
Taru and I went out to look for him.
Around 11, we found him standing in front of a shop window in the freezing cold, just staring at the window with tears streaming down his face.
In the end, you just get tired. You get tired of work and prisons and being brave. You want to see another human face. You just want your heart to leap up like it used to when you saw them.
Something was very wrong.
We've been so calm for so long.
He was burning up.
I'm not well. I've been writing my letter. I just want Jan to know how I feel so she can be happy. So she feels no remorse.
There was only a single sentence.
The same sentence, written over and over, copied and reworked to make it richer or poorer.
My beautiful Jeanne, it is nearly Christmas, and...
Beautiful isn't the right word. One should always call things by the proper name. And now I don't have time. Burn it. Burn it!
We took him back to the hospital.
I've administered the serum, but you won't survive the night.
Doctor?
7 a.m, Monday the 27th.
Doctor?
His temperature was completely normal.
I was wrong. There's more paper in the drawer. I'm going to start again.
I didn't understand. And then, at lunchtime, the same thing happened again. A young woman, also on the new serum. Her temperature came down overnight. The morning remission lasted.
Jeanne, it's the new year.
January the 5th. Taru's just been in to see me. I've never seen him so agitated.
They're coming out again. The rats.
No one's seen a dead rat since April.
But these are alive. And my neighbour's just seen 2 of them in his house. Is it all going to start again?
No. I've seen this week's figures. They're going down. Hope, very deep inside.
No one said anything in public, but in private, people started talking about
Hope.
Hope.
It's not going to happen overnight.
it's always easier for things to fall apart than to be put back together.
Things won't go back to how they were immediately.
No.
No, not immediately, but
No.
The sky never looked so blue. There were more cases on Monday, but then today, none at all. Really, none at all.
Nothing else has changed. The streets are still silent, we're still under curfew. But now it's possible to hope that...
the reign of the plague is over.
Over.
Over?
The health measures will be kept in place for another 4 weeks, and then the gates will be opened.
Hope. Hope is something you have to keep in the bank. It's something you have to keep in reserve until you're really sure you can let it out.
Hope is so cruel.
That night we went walking in the crowd. It felt like we were walking on air.
Even when you left the main streets, you could hear the crowds.
Of course, you could also see the houses that had dark windows.
And we were so tired.
We didn't know whether to laugh or cry.
I didn't know whether to laugh or cry.
I don't think that I'm the same person as I used to be.
I asked the doctor if he really thought it could stop. Just like that. Full stop. No warning, no reason.
It's possible that this could be the end. Or there could be a second wave of infections. That's also possible.
Well, in other words, it might all start again tomorrow.
They're not opening the gates for another 2 weeks.
Well, there are always unforeseen circumstances.
Everybody just wants things to go back to how they were before.
What? We should just get back to normal life. What's that when it's at home? I tell you what. Let's all start all over again with nothing. No past. No past, no records. A new life. And then, if they come for me, I won't exist.
She was on the first train into town, and I was on the platform waiting, and she came running towards me, crashing into my chest before I'd even seen her. And I knew in that moment that she was an absolute stranger.
But for the people who have lost everything, the real loneliness is only just beginning. For those who have buried a loved one in some anonymous pit, for them, the plague is still here. No one is thinking about them.
Complete denial. Everyone's forgotten. Forgotten the pits. Forgotten the smell. Forgotten the fear.
There was dancing. There were church bells. Tomorrow, everybody will have to go back to normal, to all the rules and compromises. But today was the day of survival.
It's January the 25th. The gates are finally opened. And now I'm back in my room. A momentous day and night. And now I'm back in my room. Am I ready to begin again? I can only say that there's a moment in the night or in the day when you realize you're a coward. And that's the only moment I'm really afraid of. I'm suddenly very tired. And that was my last entry, January the 26th. I was tired and I forgot to inject myself. That's all. That's all. I had a temperature and a headache.
Those are symptoms of lots of things.
No, not now.
Perhaps it's nothing serious.
We'll look after him.
And yes, I fought. I fought hard, but I lost. Lymph nodes, fever, all the usual. I slept and felt better. But then it came back with a vengeance, and I started spitting blood.
I didn't see the exact moment you died, because I was crying. I don't know whether you found peace at the last, or not. How do you find peace?
You must have been very tired as well.
Actually, I was very calm.
Even when you got the news about your wife.
Even when I got the news about my wife.
When did it happen?
The same morning you died. January the 27th. I wasn't able to take much part in the celebrations and reunions that followed the opening of the gates. As a witness to this plague, I believe I have a duty to be on the side of the victims, to speak for all of them, if only to help others to understand what happened. There is, however, one person on whose behalf I don't feel I can speak. Someone who approved in their heart of something that killed men, women and children. That's something I can't understand. And we'll just have to learn to forgive. I think it's right that we end with them.
Rieu was walking me home. There was a line of policemen blocking the street. We tried to get past.
They stopped us. Said there was somebody shooting at people up ahead.
Suddenly 2 shots rang out from one of the windows. It was coming from my building.
Apparently people had been celebrating in the street when the first shot came. They thought it was a firework. Then the second came. Somebody was injured. And everyone ran.
Anyone who tried to enter the building was being fired at. A policeman had been hit.
There was a burst of gunfire from the police. And then 2 explosions. And then they stormed the building.
They brought her out, kicking and shouting.
Now they know how I feel.
It was Miss Cottard.
Now they know how I feel.
A policeman went up to her and hit her. Very deliberately, hard, in the stomach, twice.
She fell over. And the policeman just kicked her.
Now they know how I feel.
A policeman shouted at us.
Told us to keep moving. There's nothing to see here.
So we looked away.
So we looked away.
Now they know how I feel.
It was dark by the time they let us into my apartment, and the doctor and I said goodbye. I've finished my letter. To call things by their proper names, you just have to cut out all the adjectives. What does it really mean? A plague?
People said, it's life, that's all.
Don't you worry about me, people say. There's plenty of life left in me.
And what do you expect?
People are always the same.
People are always the same.
They say they're going to put up a monument for the victims of the plague.
Next thing they'll be wanting a medal.
The papers say it'll be a pillar or a plaque.
There will be speeches.
I can hear them now. Our dead. Then they'll go and have dinner.
People are always the same.
People are always the same.
That's when I decided to make this recording. To speak up and bear witness on behalf of the victims. To leave at least some record of the violence and injustice that was done to them. What does it really mean? A plague. I think what matters is what you learn when you live through a time of plague. Namely, that there's more to admire in people than to despise. That's what I learned. That there's more to admire in people than to despise or despair of.
It's not a victory. I'm not saying this is some kind of record of victory.
This is what it is. A record of some things which had to be done, and which I'm sure will all have to be done again at some point.
Nobody's trying to be a saint. We're just refusing to submit.
Do you know how that feels?
But I also think about how freedom and joy are always under threat. And I think about what we're choosing to ignore. That the plague bacillus never really dies. It never disappears. Not entirely. It can lie dormant for years in furniture and clothing. It waits patiently in bedrooms and cellars until one day, for the misfortune of mankind, or perhaps for its instruction, the plague will once more rouse its rats and send them to die in some unsuspecting city. Thank you.